David, what's going on?
Everything's great. Just I don't know where you're at, but I'm trying to stay warm. It's a winter wonderland here in Lexington.
So I'm trying to figure. So I'm in Manhattan a lot now, and I'm trying to like figure out. I take the A train down to Aqueduct, and it's great. I enjoy it, but I'm trying to figure out the science between being cold walking to the train and then sweating when I get on the train. Because it's not like when you get on the train you want to like take off a bunch of layers. I'm trying to work out the science there. It's tough.
So the question you're asking me is, how do I stay like temperature regulated, being that I dress like it's snowing if it's 90 degrees out? Is that what we're talking about today?
I have seen you in jackets at the most inappropriate times.
Yeah, I joked that they're Kevlar. So in the line of work I'm in, you might, you know, but no, yeah, it's a funny thing. You know, I know what you're talking about. It's funny when you say that because today, my daughter's getting up for school and I'm letting the dogs out and it's snowing outside and I'm all dressed up and you're chasing the dogs around. You get a little hot, but I'd always rather be too warm than too cold. I hate the cold, to be candid. It's my nemesis, and so that's why even when I'll leave in the mornings at Saratoga, and it'll be really cold, so I'm dressed up warm, and then when the sun comes up, I just deal with it.
So this is a good question. I saw a little meme about this the other day. When you go to a hotel, what do you put the air conditioning on?
Oh, as low as it goes.
Okay, good. Yeah, me too. Just making sure. I think people who don't do that are very weird. I put it as low as it will possibly go. Yeah.
I wear a hoodie or in my vest in the house. I mean, Cherie jokes, you can take a shower in that. I wear it around my daughter. I'm like, Reagan, put more clothes on. Don't turn the heat up. Put more clothes on. So.
Well, before we get to your background and your story, I just wanted, I've never had this conversation with you. And so it's fun to do it here while we're recording. But two horses that you were around, one that you were more involved with than other, were probably two of the most formative horses of my entire horse love introduction to this game, Giacomo and Zenyatta. So we'll start with Giacomo, who obviously you were around. The first question is, so I bet 5 across the board when I was in college. A late mentor of mine who I love and respect. I didn't realize until after the fact that he didn't really know as much as I thought he knew, but he did put me on Giacomo. So when I was in college, I bet 5 across the board, and we won. I bought the keg beer, and then I bought 3 handicapping books, which kind of started my journey into this game. Did you bet Giacomo that day?
Oh yes. So I'll give you, kind of a story because you like the horse. When the horse ran in the Hollywood Futurity in December, that was the kind of last 2-year-old race of the year back when Hollywood Park was around. I cannot remember where he ran because I know we're talking about today. I say he was 3rd or 4th. John Sheriffs that day was planning on the Derby. Everything John did with that horse until the Derby was all to get points and have him peaking on that day. So, when the horse was the odds he was, it wasn't a secret to any of us that he was coming into it great, and so we bet. And they had to get a armored car to come to the barn. We flew back on Jerry Moss's jet that night. And my mother is not a big gambler, believe it or not. So Jerry Moss had bet for her. He had bet for Mike Smith. He had bet for John. And he had me to take. I was already bet, dummy me. I should have took it, but I already bet myself. And I can't remember who the track president was, maybe Steve Sexton. There were envelopes of money. And my mom's like, I'll put this in the bank. I'm like, no. You can't put that in the bank. You got to hang on to that, So it was an amazing thing. And it really brought me back to what I loved about racing, which is the Derby. Because believe it or not, when I was a little kid, I was, my grandma, my mother, everybody tried to force it on me. And, you resist. You get told something, you got to do this. And I didn't like it. I remember watching the 1989 Derby, which was Sunday Silence, by myself in my room, and the emotion that came over me watching that race. And it all came back in 2005 when Giacomo won. And, it gets you up every day doing this. It's still, we pick on racing, the decline in this and that. the Derby is one of the greatest sporting events in the world. And, you know, you have athletes say it's one of the top 5 things you can win. So, you know, to have won it and been around it. I mean, you know, I'm a footnote in the Giacomo story. It's really my parents' deal. But to be there and be part of it, it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I still watch it. It was also kind of one of my like fall in love with Mike Smith moments too. I mean, he made every right decision. They ran in front of him, but man, if he wouldn't have done the decisions he did throughout that race, I mean, it was masterful.
No, he rode. That was one of the reasons he's in the Hall of Fame, the way he rode that horse. And he had confidence. You know, it's so important for the jockey to have confidence in the horse. And in that instance, you know, Mike had so much confidence in John Sheriff's. And you know, you don't look at the odds board. You got to ride the horse you're on. You got to know the plan. And it was, you know, in our sport, if people knew the background and the planning that went into that, it really was a, you know, top 100 accomplishment and a strategy by a trainer, by an owner, by the horse, the whole thing. It was pretty amazing.
So you went to 60 on Zenyatta. How high would you have gone?
250. So when we're buying horses, a lot of times we've done all the homework. You've been to Keeneland. There's that back ring. They walk around. We'll go stand there. And it's kind of like a poker game. You look at who's looking and see whose eyes are on what and try to figure out who your competition is. And I have a spot I bid, and, you know, Mr. Moss's wife, my mother were there. And my mother would always be the one with the money to decide, you know, she'd say, and then Jerry'd go yes or no. So, you know, he said, well, what, like 250? And Jerry said, oh, at least. Okay. So I went up and bid, and when I got it for 60, I thought I bought the wrong horse. And the day before, a Hall of Fame trainer had bought the wrong horse for a Hall of Fame basketball coach. And I'm like, oh my God, did I just F this up, you know, like that? So I run over and the old guy with the ticket's like, David, where are you going? I said, right back. And I saw the head and the body. I'm like, oh, I got the right one. And so Eric Kronfeld was the breeder. And, you know, there's some saying that every good idea has 1,000 fathers, but a bad one is a you know, an orphan. There's more people than underbidder on Zenyatta, and the underbidder was the breeder, Eric Kronfeld, because we became friends with him after, and he put no reserve on a horse, and he bid himself. He was sitting inside, we were out back, and we got her for 60. And it's one of those things that was meant to be. You know, I think we did all the right things to pick her out and everything, but, you know, I'm not trying to be, you know, Disney here, but just the way the whole thing worked out was amazing. And, you know, I don't know that Zenyatta would have been Zenyatta without the program she went into with, you know, John's training and the Moss's patience and, you know, the urge to fight, to, you know, to go do something crazy with her or whatever. You know, it all worked out. And it was, again, it was a pretty magical moment at Santa Anita that day she won the Breeders' Cup. The energy, you know, the only time I felt that energy was when we were on the infield when Giacomo was coming back. You know, when you go from the stands down to where they you get the picture taken, there's a lot more time than you think. You know, that horse goes all the way and comes back, and they're interviewing Mike. The energy coming off it, it was like hitting your body. You could feel it, and it was the same way with Zenyatta. And that's, again, you know, why I love the races. That energy, that passion that people have, the crowd, yeah, and the horses know it, man. I mean, like Zenyatta knew she was used to this. I'm gonna go to the winner's circle, get my picture taken. You know, it was amazing.
How many of her 20 races were you at live?
2.
Or how many did you miss?
18. You know, I was always in Kentucky, and so like I remember watching. I bought a filly called Switch for CRK Stables.
Wow,
And,
that was a scary one.
oh my God, I was in Timonium at a bar. I had my, you know, iPad or the races on. I can't remember. And I'm going, oh my God, if this filly beats Zenyatta, you know, which, you know, you've got all this interplay going on, and I'm like, oh geez. But, you know, Zenyatta was one of those horses, you know, they weren't going to beat her. And it's funny. I read on, Twitter. I stay out of it, but one day I'm going to like weigh in on the Twitter stuff about Zenyatta or this one or that one, because I'm kind of qualified to do it. Everybody says, oh, Zenyatta polytrack. She was better on the dirt. It just wasn't as big an option as there was. And people forget John Sheriff's brought her to run in maybe the La Troyenne on Derby Day, and the track was horrible, and he did the right thing. He scratched her. But he was traveling her to run and show her off on a big day. And we were all there, and he made a tough call, which was the right call, so it's, I was there that day. I will say, if I have a regret, I would have liked to have seen her run more in person, but it just wasn't in the cards,
Well, I got to tell, I'm grateful for my brain, my own sanity, that she scratched that day. That was the first Kentucky Oaks and Derby I'd ever gone to. And we flew into Nashville the night before, spent the night in Nashville, and then drove over the next morning. And we had planned it to get there in time for the stakes. Well, I didn't know there was a time change, and I would have missed Zenyatta if she would have run in the La Troyenne. And I don't know if I would have been able to live with myself. No. My camera went out. Okay, we're back. That's all right. Yeah, so I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I would have messed that up. So as far as her 19 wins, did you ever think she was beat, or did you have that much confidence in her, even when the rest of us might have thought for a second and a half, is she going to get there? Did you have a lot of moments of nervousness when you watched her?
After a while, like from my vantage point, it's you become a fan. And that's the interesting thing when you're involved with these horses. Yes, there's this pressure, that you own them, or your family members train them, or you bought them, or you manage them, or whatever it is. But when they actually go in the gate, when you have a horse at that level, you become a fan. And with Zenyatta, it was being a fan, and then the enormity of the history she created. I mean, say what you want, you win 19 races in a row and go in and probably got more respect on the race you got beat. There aren't a lot of horses in history that do that. And, took on all comers, not like she ducked anybody. She went and ran in the races. So to answer your question, there are a couple tracks, well, not a couple. I think Del Mar wasn't her favorite surface. And, anytime she ran there, even though she had a good record there, I think that was always the one. I'm like, John said she didn't really like the track there, but she overcame that. And to me, that showed a little of her greatness. She, even when she didn't like something, she still won. And not all good horses do that. Some of them, if they don't like something, they throw it in. But an all-time great, like any sport athlete, they give it to you on a good day or a bad day.
We'll get to another pretty special buy a little bit later with Flightline, but let's go to your kind of your origin story, your Marvel origin story. It started in California at Santa Anita, like literally at Santa Anita. What brought you to the game, for those who don't know?
So my family, my father, he was a jocks agent. He basically raised P-Val. He had great jocks over the years, Pink Eye, Sandy Hawley. Patrick was his culminating work. I think he was going to take Corey Nakatani's book when he passed away. That would have been a big thing for Corey, because my dad was one of the old timers. He treated you like a son. He kept those guys in line, which is missing with some people today. It's these jocks are a little more prima donna-y than they were when I was younger. So he got into it. My mother was a school teacher, but and very well educated, master's degrees and everything. And she came over into the horses because, of the work schedule. Your weekends, when you're a school teacher, are off. Your weekends are Monday and Tuesday when you're in the horse business. So they did it. And, like I say, when I was 13, I watched the Derby, and it captivated me. And at that point, but I'd been around Charlie Whittingham, I'd been around Las Barrera, Bill Shoemake, all these people, Bobby, obviously. I was around all these people growing up. I just took it for granted. I see it with my daughter. She does the same thing. You're around these people that in our world are all knowing, all time greats. They talk like we are to you. They, they mess around with you. They buy you a Coke or whatever. And I got to be around all these people. But then when the bug bit me, said, I'm going to work. That's what I wanted to do. Right there and then I decided there was no hesitation, I don't think I ever thought I would do anything but the horses. So, I was supposed to go to work for Laz Barrera, actually, and he died. I called him Uncle Laz. And I'll never forget my ignorance. He said, I'll teach you to win the Triple Crown one day. And I said, I want to win two. He said, I'll teach you the first one. The next one's, I'm 14 years old, 13 probably at the time, because I had to be 14 to get a license to go to work. And, I didn't even realize what I was saying, And when he passed away, I went to work for Bobby, and the rest for me was history. And I would go to school, I'd go there early. I wouldn't skip school, but I worked it out where you could do your first period of, it was like a work study up at my high school. So I'd go to the barn and, I was eating up with it. Study all the pedigrees, all the catalogs. It wasn't osmosis. Like the people I around wasn't like great teachers, but if you paid attention, you learned. And I paid attention, and then I'd ask questions and made a lot of mistakes, which you do, and just worked my way up. And I think because I wanted to do it, a lot of people gave me a chance. And even when I screwed up, if I learned, they gave me another chance. So it just kept going and going and going. And I wasn't going to go to college. And my mother heard, Bobby and the guys tell me, you don't need to go to you're where we can use you and you're worth something to us. And I went to college, went to UK, which was a great move for me because California is this island. It's always been thought of that way, even today. And I went to the Wall Street, if you will, of horse racing, which is Lexington. And went to college here. I worked on Juddmonte in the mornings. I got chicken pox the start of my second semester. So I basically took off school that semester and worked on the farm. And those were things that, they were all kind of just happened, like they do in an origin story. You don't know why you got bit by the spider, but now you did. And here you are with these abilities and powers. And it's funny, the things I learned like at Juddmonte stick with me today. And the things I learned at the racetrack, I tell all these young people, you guys got to go to the track. Oh, I went for 2 months and walked hots for so-and-so. No. You got to go and immerse yourself and do it. And I was lucky. And I got to see so many good horses. I got to see how they were trained. I got to see how they were fed. I got to see what they could live with, see what they couldn't. And, it all culminated when I turned 21. I graduated from UK. I got out in 4.5 years. I only missed that one semester. And I was going to go home. And a guy named Mike Levy, heard I might want to stay around. So he interviewed me for his insurance company. And he says, you're going to hate this. I know a guy named Johnny Jones. And at the time, Johnny Jones had Walmack Farm. They had Nuria, alleged. It was the kind of beginning of the end of his reign as a big stallion farm. It was before Coolmore was really rolling and the Spendthrifts and all that. And I went and worked there and got a whole nother, education on wheeling and dealing and stallions and those things, but kept my buying up and it just really took off. And, we still at it today. Touch wood.
Yeah. And Dave, you've been a part of a lot of different partnerships, whether it's Belladonna or West Point and recently with Victory with More Than Looks. What is it do you think that partnerships has brought to the game, and are we getting it right with partnerships? Or what can change? What can we take advantage of? What's your thought as a whole?
So other countries have embraced partnerships to a much greater level than the U.S. has. As far as, in Australia, it's unregulated. We're under SEC rules, at least the partnerships that I'm involved in. We have to be very careful with our paperwork that we're not selling like a security. In Australia, you could set up a little stand there and have, JK's, partnership and do it. And, as long as you got paperwork, off you go. So one thing in the U.S. that I'd like to see is a little bit of flexibility in it to bring people into it. But even under the current rules, what's great about partnerships is, like with our Belladonna partnerships, I joke, it's like NetJets, but with horses. You buy into it, you get the management, you get the fun of it. Whether you own 10% or 100% of a horse, when you win a big race, you don't go, ooh, I own 10%, so I can only have 10% of the fun. You have 100% of the fun. It's a numbers game. You've got to have a quantity of quality to win at a high level. And if your price points are 50 grand, that's fine. If your price point's 100 grand, if your price point's $1 million, it just depends on your risk tolerance and what you want to do. But the more people we can introduce to racing and give them a good opportunity to get at a higher, at the highest levels and feel that energy. There's a partner of ours in Vava, and he brought his CFO, and this guy is a player. Big, handsome guy. Women love him. He's super successful. He's done it all, and like Harvard educated guy, brilliant guy. And, he's about our age, and him and his CEO are in there, and they're like, man, we partied in our day. We've done some drugs, David. There's no high like this, And can I say that? I said it on something one day. I'm like, oops, shouldn't have said that. But
no, you're fine.
It's a truth. Like, these guys were being really honest with how they felt and the juice they got from it. And I can tell you, being in the racing side, and you probably feel it with the gambling side, because I do too. Winning, it's not even about the money. It's about winning. It's about my horse was faster than yours, or my skill at picking out this combination is better than yours. It's a high. I don't need to do any drugs. I really need to drink, even though I got a bourbon behind me. You can get that energy and that buzz out of this competition, out of winning these big races. So these athletes, these businessmen that are retired, they can't play golf or this is a way to get that juice, that energy back in your life. And it's a beautiful way to do it. You can do it with your family. You could do it if you have a bad back, can't see to hit a golf ball or something. You can do these things in racing with, getting in a partnership. Getting a partnerships like joining a country club or joining any kind of group. You want to make sure that people suit you. There's partnerships out there, and a lot of great ones. I know I don't suit them, and they wouldn't suit me. And so, like in our partnerships, whether it's some things we've done with West Point, what we do at Belladonna, what Victory does, it's a little bit like recruiting for a gang. I make a lot of stupid analogies, but it's like everybody's a lot alike. They all share some kind of trait. The Victory guys are wild. They have fun. They're always the best dressed guys at a place. They're yelling and hollering. And we went into a bar after a big win in Louisville, and all the ladies up there were, like happy to see these guys. These guys have fun, and, our Belladonna guys all have a lot of good time, but they're a little bit, they're a different kind of energy and excitement about them, but you get everybody to mix and match, and it's great. And all these people are getting to experience at a high level that maybe if they didn't band together, they couldn't have been on a More Than Looks, or they couldn't have been in an Alvava. And now we have people that actually have the money. They could buy the whole partnership themselves. They actually like to be involved with the group, and it's like their team. These are their teammates. The trainer's the coach, and, I'm like a GM or a recruiting guy. We all have a good time with it. And, I joke, we drink champagne when we win, but we have a beer if we lose. And everybody gets along, and, and it's great. And I think from that we'll develop more fans. I think we should be encouraging it. And, one thing the racetracks could help us with, they're very kind of in this box on, you get 6 tickets. You get 6 tickets to the box, or 6 paddock passes. And I get it, but there's got to be a way to entertain these people and bring them in, because you don't know where the next Mike Rapoli or, Gary Barber. A lot of these guys, I don't know about Mike, but a lot of big owners started in partnerships. That's like our seed team, our development league. So the more we can encourage that, I think we're going to have a better fan base and grow our business. Quit fighting over this little pie that's shrinking. Let's grow it. Let's find a way to do that by bringing new people in.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I understand the restrictions. It's tough, right? I mean, it's what are you gonna do? You're gonna kick you're gonna kick Lee Einsiedler out of his box because you need an extra box because
Right.
you guys got partners on a horse in a grade one. I understand the predicament, but there's got to be a creative way to try to work around that to find a way to make it work. It's a large paddock at Saratoga. And I know that we're not talking specifically about Saratoga.
Right.
There's other paddocks that can be a little bit trickier, but yeah, it's that pie conversation that I often turn to so often that you nailed is that, this industry and all the facets of it, whether it's sales, whether it's, HISA, whether it's hospitality, Breeders' Cup, Kentucky Derby. I'm not picking on anyone individually. We're all guilty of it, of protecting our piece and not really focusing on making it bigger so that our piece grows without us having to do much different. And it's one thing that I think we miss. That's for certain.
We have rivalries. There are plenty of guys that some of them don't love me, but without this game, we can't have our rivalry. I always say we've got to work together to have a game to play, because if we don't, there's no more game. And I'm driving an Uber, instead of talking to you and doing what I love. So any way we can all, work together, everybody collectively as an industry, put their guns on the table. Let's make it great, because if it's good for everybody, it's going to be good for us individually. And there's a future, and that's, as I get older, I realize how important that is. It's not just trying to beat this person. Sometimes you have to work together as a group and realize you don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. People on the other side of the aisle don't know everything. We got to work together, because if we don't, we're just going to ruin something that's been around hundreds of years. And hopefully long may it be around for hundreds more.
Well, speaking of hundreds of years, I've only been around the game for, what is it, 24? I guess you could say 20 years. This is about right. Yeah, Breeders' Cup in 2020. Yeah, about 20 years. And I've never seen a four-legged animal run in an oval like I did a couple years ago with Flightline. He was absolutely sensational. I've loved a lot of good horses. Every time Zenyatta run, I was nervous that this was the time she was going to get beat. I never felt that way when Flightline got in the gate. After his Malibu, it just felt like at every point it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to win, that Flavian was going to have to jump off for him to get beat.
Yeah, he was a special talent from day one. And again, it gets overused. But, having been there from the beginning, the horse never had a bad day on his reports. His first breezes were like, wow. And the people that help us are not, each kind of link in a horse's development in our chain, starts with like where Jane Lyon raised the horse. They don't really get excited that easily, then like us to find these horses. Then you go to people like the Mayberries. April Mayberry was an important part of Bob Baffert's program in his early years. Her father was a great trainer. Her mother is probably one of the most underrated horse people in the history of our game. They won more 2-year-old races than Wesley Ward, Baffert, and Lucas combined in their day. So they break a lot of my young horses. They had Flightline. They do not get excited. It's not, they've seen it, done it. Oh, it cost $1 million, They treat these horses like horses. And when you hear down there, hey, David, last year we had Honor AP. I'm like, yeah, okay, who's the one this year? We got 2. We have 3, actually. I was like, wow, 3 that have that kind of ability. It says, yeah, one of them is a little different than the rest. I said, okay. And, and then it's Flightline. And, Sadler gets a hold of the horse. And, he called me years ago and he said, man, I just had a Philly Breeze, the best I've ever had a horse breeze. And I'm like, which one's that? He said, the Philly you bought out of Maryland. I said, oh, Stellar Wind. He's like, yeah. He said, this might be the best horse I've ever had. Off 1.5 breeze, you know, he's trained her. So now you got that kind, and he was right, obviously. You know, and then so everywhere you go, they're talking about this horse is next level, and the people that are talking to you have the width of bandwidth of knowledge and experience to be accurate in what they're saying, and you know, but then he did what he did and how he did it. You begin to lose words, you know. I mean, what am I going to say about it? That I don't think I've seen a race as impressive as his Pacific Classic. I mean, he was in a gallop, and if they had just asked him, he breaks the track and stakes record set by Candy Ride, who was another really all-time talented horse. He didn't have as long a race career as some others. And he beats a horse, oh, by the way, in Country Grammar that's not a bum either, you know, and did it in a jog. I mean, that stuff's what really amazes me.
Country Grammar, tonalist.
Tonalist, yep. Got to get the
yeah. I mean,
Tony.
He was he was sensational, and the thing, you know, is the way that he did it. You know, he just would go out there and just cruise around there. I thought his Met Mile was sensational. I don't think he had an easy trip in there, and he beat a really good horse. You know, he was something else, and I'm excited to see his offspring. We worked on something before this. We talked about it about his offspring, and so for people who aren't going to see that for a while, I wanted to give you a chance just to kind of talk a little bit about what you've seen, get people excited about what some of these babies are looking like.
You know, again, I try not to, all geese are not swan. You know, you can't, everything is perfect. It's just, that's not true. That'd be inaccurate. But I will say I've looked at, I don't know, it's close to 30 Flightline foals through yesterday, and I don't see one of them that I'm embarrassed of, or I think, oh my God, you know, this one's got no shot. And I like to see that when a stallion is that much dominating his offspring, and it's his first crop, and they're out of some lovely mares, so the mares are important too. But I see that little glint in his eye, that little extra. There's something a horse does when I look at him, and it's like the look of eagles, the old timers would say, or just this 20,000 yard stare they do, and Flightline does it. You know, a lot of good horses, they just look, and it's like they're thinking, and Flightline does it. These foals are doing it. You know, we talked on that other project we did about what made Flightline different. Outside of his ability was his mind. I mean, he had a very, very good mind. You know, he came here. He's never, like, you don't know he's in the barn. He went from high-level racehorse to valued stallion doing his job. You know, once he figured out that it wasn't a one-time deal, he relaxed and, went right to it. I mean, the horse is smart, and that's a huge component to a racehorse's success. More talented horses don't make it because of up here than they do from a physical, in my opinion.
Any of the 30 that you've seen, and I'm not asking for an exact number, are any of them gray?
I haven't seen a gray one. No, I've seen a couple chestnuts, but no grays.
I didn't know if the tappet would. Does that happen usually? Will the tappet come out in the offspring of a brown horse?
It can. I mean, I have a theory on some stallions, especially out of really good mares. I think a lot of times, like, he takes a little more on the Indian Charlie look physically, which is strong and powerful, especially in the hip. And I think that's coming through a little bit more than maybe the tappet is. I don't think he looks like a tappet to me. I think he's got that more Indian Charlie, strong body, the way his neck and head is. He's got great bone, which is something I like in a horse. Got tremendous bone, and he's passing that on to the foals. So I don't know where it's coming from, but I like it.
I hear you. And then, David, before we get out of here, we got to touch more than looks. That was, it was one of those deals when he crossed the wire. I said to myself, of course, he got scratched out of the easier spot, forced in the 4-star Dave, come running in the 4-star Dave when he clearly wasn't ready. Then he comes running in the Keeneland race. It made sense after he crossed the wire. I just didn't get there before, which you don't get paid for that.
I did tell you. No, I did tell you. That's one I did give you my vote of confidence. Just like we talked about Giacomo earlier, and trust me, just because people are my family, if you ever go to our dinners or meetings, we're the hardest on each other. Just because you're a family member or wife or husband doesn't mean you get any clemency in our household. But when that horse ran in the Breeders' Cup last year, Cherie said, we're going to go for the Breeders' Cup next year. And she mapped out a plan. The horse had a funky stall injury the day we're going to run him at the fairgrounds. And Cherie had to come up with an alternative plan and got the horse there. And she told the owner, look, she was on the phone when they called her and said, hey, we're taking the lure off the grass with the owner. She's like, hey, I got to hang up on you. I got to get this horse. And they hadn't weighted the 4-Star Dave. So they said, we're getting ready to do the weights right now. So she got the horse in there, worked him on the grass later that morning, I think we did, on Oklahoma, and got the horse there and it designed everything to happen the way it did. The race in Lexington, I'm kind of a little salty about because Jose did a great job getting the horse a little more forwardly placed in the Coolmore Mile. And the horse from Europe kind of banged him and took him out, and he lost some ground. And when you're running against that elite level horses and you lose that much ground in a slow pace, he should have won another race, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. It doesn't, that's over. But the Breeders' Cup, my wife gets upset when she kind of takes it as a disrespect when they give her bad odds on a horse she really likes. I said, Cherie, it's one of the reasons you got a different last name than me. We're going to bet on him. Let's don't worry about it. And no. This horse should be this and that. And no disrespect, Jeff Siegel, if you're listening, it was the worst line there ever was for him to be 20-1. I was happy, but I knew we weren't going to get that. And I don't know if you saw it the morning of, they redid the odds for the race. He was now 12-1 on the morning line. And, we sent it in, and I knew going in the first turn, we were in a great spot. And the handicapping angle there was the horse got the same rider 2 times in a row. And he's been one of those horses that's always been, somebody zigs when they're supposed to zag. The year before, Johnny was supposed to ride him, and he zagged to a different horse, and we had Rosario. And Rosario didn't really know him. It wasn't probably the best trip and ride we could have ever had. So, those things all came together. And, I was excited for me, but also for the partners and really for Cherie because she was having a great year. But winning Breeders' Cup races is like when you're in the SEC, you're 10-1 or whatever it is. You're going in to play the rival for the SEC championship and you lose. You've lost your season. You got to win those championships, So
Are you talking to me?
No, actually, I forgot about that. Actually,
I forget. You got me nervous all of a sudden.
No.
Texas plays Georgia this weekend. We're 10-1. I thought you were talking to me.
No. I actually love college football analogies for horse racing because there's a lot in common with racing and training and what they do in recruiting the players. And the Breeders' Cup is like our your SEC championship, for example. Yeah. But listen, I'll root for whoever you want. Kentucky decided to lay down this year, so I'll root for whoever you're pulling for. I'm pulling for this year.
Well, David, I appreciate it. It was so much fun to listen to the Zenyatta stuff, and appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate all your help and as well, and we look forward to having you on here again soon. Thanks again, and good luck with everyone you got running coming up here soon.
Yeah, we got a busy end of the year, so hopefully finish out strong.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.